no one is coming to save you, right? And you need to be your own hero. You need to craft your own story, to work on your own success. And that's one of the most important lessons I've learned inside this journey. Hey, what's up everyone? This is Shui here and welcome to this video where we talk everything about mindset, breakthrough, and also influence. Now, in today's video, we are going to talk about the 5 tips for you to get through tough times in your life. So what made me credible to actually talk about this topic is because I started my own journey at the age of 20 years old where I started my own training business. And during that time, people always think that I'm too young, I'm a nobody, how am I able to train their staff and employees? And because of that, I got lots of rejection. But then when I survived through that stage and up to this point, we have trained up to 10,000 people across 5 different countries. I am able to also get recognized as the 100 most influential entrepreneur of the year 2023. And also we have trained up Fortune 500 companies from Coca-Cola, BD, Petronas, Shell, and all these different companies as well, right? So the reason why I want to share with you this video here is because I want you to know that if you are in a place right now where you felt lost, you don't know what to do, and you just don't know what would happen to you tomorrow, the next day, and you couldn't even feed yourself, then this video here is something that you need to hear. So here are 5 tips that I personally use for me to get through my tough times. And I want to share with you here today because I thought it might be useful for some of you guys here, right? So the first mindset shift that I want you guys to really understand is this. Acknowledge your heart. See, when I first started out in my entrepreneurship journey when I was 20 years old, everyone thought that I was being too young. And people literally come into my face and tell me that, Shui, you are a nobody. You are so young at 20 years old, you haven't even got your first job yet. What makes you think that you could actually train up our team? So that was literally the feedback that I gotten, right? And to me at that time, when I first started off at 20 years old, it was extremely tough journey for me because I wanted this so badly and I know for a fact that this is my passion. But for someone to be told that you are just too young, it caused a dent in my confidence level. And at that time, imagine you get rejections after rejections for almost a year, right? And no one really believed in you. I got to a point where I almost gave up. And then, just when I was about to give up, I remember this quote that I had to remind myself at. And this quote is by Alex Hormozi, and he said this. This is what hearts feel like. And this is exactly where most people, they will give up. But not you. So you see, the first mindset shift that I had is when I realized that starting a business, when I first go into it, I know that it's not going to be easy. I know that it's going to be tough. But sometimes it's just for us to acknowledge the fact that it's hard, that it's tough. And I get it, right? Because sometimes we need to give ourselves the permission to actually acknowledge that it's hard. So when I first acknowledge this feeling and I tell myself that, yes, starting a business is going to be hard. And this is exactly what hard looks like and what hard feels like. And then the next thing I ask myself is, so what? Are you going to just lay down there, complain and blame? Or are you just going to keep on moving forward until you eventually get results? So that's the mindset I want you guys to have. Acknowledge that things are tough for you. And then the next thing that you tell yourself is, so what? Things are tough. Because a lot of times you guys tell yourself that I can't speak in front of public because my English is not good. Good. Your English is not good. So what? Right? Are you gonna just tell people that your English is not good, or are you gonna work on that? Some of you guys just stand out on stage, you tell me that you have stage fright. You're not able to influence people. And then my next question to you is, so what? So the reason that you know you're not able to influence people, are you going to continue this? Or are you going to acknowledge that overcoming your fear is hard? But at the same time, you are going to do your best. Because when you acknowledge that things are hard for you, and that's okay, then the next question is, what are you going to do about it? right? So that's the mindset shift that really helps me to get through this tough time. Now, the second mindset shift that helps me to get through these tough times is this. You will continue to be where you are right now unless you master these two words. And this two word is my fault. So you see, a lot of times we tend to put the blame onto something else when things are not going our way. When we feel that our English is not good and that's why we can't present, we put the blame on the English, saying that the reason why people don't listen is because my English is not good, right? The reason why I am not able to speak well is because I have this fear inside me. The reason why I'm not able to remember my script is because of this other person, right? So you see, we tend to put a lot of blame onto other things except ourselves. But you got to understand that the moment you put your blame onto something else or onto someone else, you are giving them power. So the moment you are blaming the government has control. The government has power. The moment you are putting the blame onto someone else, that person, they has power and we lose our personal power, right? So you got to understand that when you do something and when things happen for you, it's always your fault. The moment you realize that everything is your fault and you start taking responsibility, that is where you start seeing results. And some of you guys here might be telling me, but Shui, what if it is not my fault? What if it really isn't my fault? But then the question to you is, does it really matter if it is not your fault? Because the truth is, right, you could either keep on blaming to say that it's not your fault, or you could actually take responsibility. Even though things are not your fault, how are you able to make things better, right? So I always remind myself this. There's a difference between a victim mindset and also a victor mindset. A victim is where they complain, they blame. Everything that happens, they put the finger onto someone else and then they say that it's their fault. But for a victor, they take responsibility. They understand that yes, even though things are not under my control and it may not even be my fault, but how can I do things better? What are some of the action steps that I could take to make things better? So when you are able to shift from a victim perspective to a victor's mindset, you shift from pain, problem, to the solution that you want. So that is what helps you to get through tough times, right? So you see, when I first started out in public speaking, right? So people always tell me this, that Shui, you're just too young, right? You don't even read books. How can you even write a book? You don't even have your first job yet. How can you actually speak to us, right? So you see, people during that time, they are extremely skeptical. Then it's not my fault. But if I were to put the blame onto them and then I said, why are these managers so skeptical? Can't they give a young person a chance? Guess what? I will not be able to get that chance. But instead, I tell myself this. It is my fault that they think that I am too young, because I never allow them to believe that I'm much more credible. So that's why I need to start working on myself. I need to start putting in the work so that even though at this age, I am able to actually make them believe that I can do something great. So it is my fault, right? So you see, until you first take responsibility, nothing's going to change for you. Okay? Now moving on to the third mindset shift. And this shift comes when I first started doing the ice bath. So when I first started doing the ice bath, it's extremely cold, right? And imagine every morning 6 a.m. you jump into ice, water that's below 0 degree, you're gonna freeze and no one's gonna like it, right? And I think that this applies to our life as well. Sometimes when things get tough, we tend to avoid those situations, right? So you gotta understand this, that every time I step into the ice bath, I remind myself this, that the cold water doesn't get hotter the longer you wait. So you see, a lot of times we want to wait until the perfect moment before we start doing something. We want to feel ready before we start speaking. We want to feel confident before we start pursuing our goals. We want to feel that we are a leader before we start leading a team. But the truth is that if you continue to wait, nothing will ever happen to you. Because the truth about this world is that there is no perfect time in this world. Like, you got to take action. Because only by taking action, you will be able to start seeing progress, right? And through progress, and through the feedbacks that you get, that's how you implement, that's how you improve, and over time, it leads you to results that you want. But it doesn't get you results straight, right? Most of the time, what we think is that we want to be 100% sure that I'm going to get this result before we start taking action. But I want you to remember this: progress over perfection. Progress over perfection, right? So that's why a lot of times when you feel that you are not ready yet, take the leap of faith. Take the risk. Push yourself out of your comfort zone, right? Because when you are stuck, chances are you are within your comfort zone and you don't know how to break through that. See, in my business, there are a lot of times where I say yes to opportunities that I wasn't sure, right? I said yes when I don't feel ready. When people ask me, can I do this talk in front of 1,000 people? I wasn't ready, but I said yes. Because the moment I said yes, I forced myself to be ready, right? So remember this: there is no perfect time for you to start something, right? So start small. Whatever you want, right? Start small and you build onto that, okay? And the fourth mindset shift that I had every time I felt lost in my life is this: that there's no one coming to actually save you. You are all by yourself. So do something. You see, a lot of times as human beings, we tend to wait for people to come and save us. Because we tend to wait that I need to have a mentor to help me out. I need to have a solution before I start moving forward. But then I remember that when I first started this journey in entrepreneurship, right, there was a time where business was extremely low for us. And during that time, my company's account nearly went down to almost last month of expenses to be covered. And after that, basically we are out of asset, right? So during that time, I remember that I was really lost and I did not know what to actually do. So I was waiting because I did not know what I wanted. I did not know how to actually get out of this stuck state, right? And during that time, I realized something: that the longer that I wait, no one is coming to save me. And I'm all by myself. So sometimes the best way for you to get out of a stuck state is not to be alone, but to look for external help. To look for mentors who have a different perspective that helps you to get out from where you were. And that was one of the most effective ways that I find in whenever I'm feeling down. That was actually what I do, right? So you gotta understand that every time you felt lost, instead of complaining, instead of blaming, or instead of just remaining at the same place, which is what most people do, because they are afraid that even at this stuck state, they are afraid they might take the wrong step. But then to me is, you gotta understand this, that if you continue to remain where you are, no one is there to actually save you. So that's why you got to continue taking action, right? Continue to work on the goals that you want, to look for solution, to be resourceful, to look at around you. Who are the people that is able to help you? And you look for these people. And these people, when they offer you a different perspective, that's where they help you to get out of that stuck state. So that's one of the realization that I had. And remember this, okay? And finally, the fifth tip that I have for all of you guys here, and the fifth mindset shift, is to focus on the dark work. Now, what do I mean by dark work? Dark work is the dirty work that no one is willing to do and no one wants to do. I learned this from one of my friends. His name is Anthony Trucks, right? And he said this about dark work, which I extremely love. Do so much work in the dark that is impossible to lose in the light. And what this means is that when you are stuck, are you doing enough work to grab yourself, to pull yourself out from that stuck state? Are you actually building the foundation? Are you actually doing the dirty work to start from scratch? Or are you just remaining at the same place, complaining, blaming, and you are down, right? So you see, many people think that I had a lot of fear when I want to speak up in public, right? The fear that you have and the reason why you are feeling fearful is because you are sitting there allowing this fear to creep in and you don't do anything about it. Because the truth is that if you have the time to feel fearful, it also means that you have that time to do something else to get rid of that fear. Because when you counter fear with action, the fear goes away. Because you got to understand that the human mind can only focus on one thing at a time. So if that one thing that you're focusing on is actually fear, you are telling your mind to feel more of those fear. But instead of feeling fearful, if you just focus on another thing that is to take action, to prepare yourself, that fear goes away. Because your human mind can only focus on one thing at a time. But then most of us, what we do is we allow ourselves to indulge in this fear. We stay in this fear. And when you stay in this fear, guess what? That fear doesn't go away. So you see, in influence or when you're speaking to people, the first thing that you got to do is not to just overcome your fear, but I believe that it's also to over-prepare yourself. Now, the reason why you have so much fear inside you is because you are just not prepared. And most people, they want instant result, but they are not willing to put in the hard work, to do the dark work. So the truth is that put in the amount of input, the amount of work into whatever you are stuck to a point where it's impossible for you not to get results. So that is the ultimate goal. Because the truth is that, you see, you can't control the results that you get. But what's the one thing that you can control? You can control the action that you take, the input that you put in. Because imagine if you're in sales, right? And imagine that if your closing rate is 10%, which means that out of 100 people that you call, you only get 10% of people that respond to you. Great. That's 10 customers, right? So if you are more hardworking compared to other people and you put in 1,000 calls, guess what? If you get 10%, you're getting 100 people. And let's just say if you go the extra miles, you put in the amount of work, you put 10,000 calls in, you're going to get 1,000 customers. So you see, at the end of the day, people complain that I'm not getting enough client. But then you got to ask yourself, are you putting enough work to really make things work? Or are you just sitting there complaining that your closing is not good, that no one wants to buy from you? Because if you are able to put in the effort that is required, and not just required, but you put in extra effort, guess what? You will be rewarded with the right results. So I want you to remember this, input over output. Because at this stage, it is so easy for people to succeed because people nowadays, they are actually lazy, right? So if you are able to just put in a little bit of hard work compared to other people, you are already ahead of the game, right? So the next time you felt that you are stuck, you are afraid, and with all this negative emotion that is piling up onto you, remember this, combat stress and all these negative emotions with action. Because the moment you do something, the moment you take action, your mind will not have capacity to actually think about the problem, right? So that is one of the most effective way that I found in helping me to combat all these problems and to help me to get out of this stuck state, right? So with that being said, I hope that this session here is able to help you to get out of wherever you are facing right now and also to solve some of the problems that you are currently facing in your life as well, right? So with that being said, thank you so much and I look forward to see you in the next video.